So we're live. Welcome, Thysa. We are kind of kicking off a hopeful and really inspiring series about women and money together. A topic that we already had a conversation before. We are both kind of interested in and curious about. So let me share a little bit what I have in mind, and please kind of fill in the blanks when I missed something that you find important and worth sharing about how we got there, how we got about to the topic. I remember that we went for a walk when this was still possible in Corona times, and realized that we both had read the book of Glennon Doyle, Untamed, which was for different reasons for us kind of a kind of shaking wake up, and still comforting to some extent. And we got to the topic of women, and also about privileges, and maybe also realizing that to some extent we as two white women are still privileged in comparison to others. And then it came also to the topic of money and the economy, and how this is forming actually the society in which we are living in. And so we got to that point that we said, let's have this conversation, let's record it also to share our process of making sense around this topic with the world. And I would kind of to invite you into the room, I would like to ask you, what is it that that interests you about this topic, or the combination of the two topics, women and money, and what's your intention for our call tonight, today? Yeah.
All right, thank you, Vera. Well, the reason why I was interested in this topic actually is because money is for me a super difficult topic. And I came to realize that when we had the conversation. I remember us walking in Flevo Park. We were talking about the privilege of white women, and how this book Untamed made me realize really how privileged I am as a person, but also sort of still the difficult things I encounter in life. And that's for me definitely sort of the position of women towards money, but then maybe also the way I've been raised in terms of talking about money, dealing with money. So yeah, I found it very interesting, maybe also for my own sort of personal development, to have this chat and to be open about it and to talk about it, just because money has always been for me a very sort of formal topic in which you got to deal with it and you got to do it, and you want to be an independent woman. I don't know, all of these things coming into my mind. So yeah, that's where it all started for me.
Yeah, thanks. I recognize it, and what is kind of adding, like, what is my intention and why I am interested in. Also in the conversation that we had when we were walking there in Amsterdam in the Flevo Park, is the more women, but also men actually, I'm having a conversation with, the more I become aware this is really that's another pandemic. We are not talking about it, obviously. I don't know whether often enough, because we are obviously talking about money often enough. If we go to a shop, it's about the price, then they tell us the price, then we pay the money, so we are talking about money, but we are not talking about what it actually does with us, and how it's playing a role in our life, and how it's playing a different role in different lives, also depending on how we've been raised, like what you said, and I am extremely curious how this is for different people. We share quite a lot of features. We're both white, we're both European. We're both living here in Amsterdam, but you're Dutch, I'm German. There's already a difference. There might be differences in how our families kind of raised us. And I think just realizing that there might be common places that we'll discover in these conversations, but there might be also things where, like, whoa, I never thought about it. And to kind of get away this taboo scheme from this topic, because it's important, you know, it's very often playing a role in the very big decisions that we are making. So it's playing, I think, a very important decision in the jobs we choose, the educational path we are choosing. It's playing a role also, I think, in the partner search, even though we are reluctant to acknowledge that. And in so many really crucial things. So if we're not talking about that, then it will play a role in an unconscious manner, and I want to get consciousness into that. So this is kind of my intention and my curiosity about this topic. Okay, so I've been taken the inspiration from a course that I'm following myself right now on money and consciousness, CU Money, and I borrow an exercise from Nadezhda Taranchevsky, who has designed the course, so the credit goes fully to her. I'm just taking the questions because I found it myself really interesting and also shocking to some extent, and I would like to hear your answers to that, if that's okay. Yeah,
of course.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I would like you to complete the following sentences. The first sentence is, the society in which I grew up in assumes about women and money that.
It's not even for everyone. The amount of money you get for things is not even for every woman.
Okay. Okay. Second sentence. The society in which I grew up in assumes about men and money that.
Whoa, that's a good one. Well, I think the connection is between men and women that it's not even in what they get paid. Maybe for men that money is more important compared to women.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's go further. The society in which I grew up in assumes about relationships and money that.
We do not like to talk about it at first in a relationship.
The society in which I grew up in assumes about people with money that.
Sorry, once again.
The society in which I grew up in assumes about people with money that. So people who have money.
In some way, it creates happiness to have money.
And without money?
That you might be less happy.
And those who want money?
Those who want money, that it maybe provides them more happiness. I think happiness and money is something that we
the connection. Wait, you were lost. I heard that we were talking about people who want money, and then you say like it provides happiness and that they want more happiness, and then you were gone because of the internet connection. So can you share it once more?
Welcome to online Corona times in which we in which we try to find our way with Zoom. So the point I was making is that I guess in these days and in society, we as humans are sort of finding out what money means to us and what it can offer us. So and I think what is really beautiful in these days is that there are more books coming up, more people talking about it, that money is not everything. But I guess it's still in our system, sort of, that I don't know, maybe being fulfilled or sort of reaching something goes together with money. Like, you give me something and I have to receive something. And I think maybe I'm now sort of also using the Corona times. What I've learned very much from the Corona times is that I have the feeling that people get more conscious about the fact that it's not all about you giving me something and that I have to give something back to you, that it's always a sort of two-way street, but that during Corona, we've also learned that sometimes you can give others something and you don't expect something back. Whereas I think society in general is more made up on you want something, you pay for it, and you get it back. And I think that's a good thing that we're maybe learning now more these days, that it's not always about giving and receiving, but sometimes also about giving and not receiving something back immediately. And that goes to me the same for money, like receiving something and then paying for it, for example. I realize these days that you don't always at first need to ask for something and get money back from it, because you get it later on. You get your sort of thing later on. And I at least that's what I'm sort of experiencing now.
So the kind of when I hear you right, you say like one of the things that we are maybe learning right now is that that there don't has to be an instant gratification. So in the sense that, or maybe even the reward for my labor, for my work that I'm giving, will be paid back, but I have to learn patience, because sometimes time doesn't allow, or maybe the kind of also interrupted processes around us don't allow for the immediate seeing of results, but it comes at a later stage. Is that right? Yeah. There's a last sentence, and I'm going to kind of share it, and then I think we already have enough food for our discussion later on with what you shared with your assumptions, which I find quite interesting. And that is, what's the most important implicit or explicit lesson I got from society about money?
That you don't always have to look at the price of something, but that as long as you follow your gut feeling and you follow your true ambition, that money will pay itself later on, and maybe not directly, but also indirectly.
Wow, but that's a really hopeful lesson that you got in terms of in that sense. I find it quite remarkable, because when I did like the sentence that came up with this last kind of question that I just was asking you was, what was it for me? Number one, you have to work really, really hard, but you cannot be sure that you actually get a reward in terms of money for the work that you've been doing, especially as a woman. So my kind of vision around that, and I'm also aware in terms of that this comes from my family, and my family, the kind of the traumas that they've been enduring during war times, that this is very much related to the lessons that I also got from society, because my family is part of the society, obviously. But you're kind of drawing what I hear, actually out of all the answers that you've been giving, that there's quite a positive projection on money. So money creates happiness. Money is happiness. Having money means that you're happy, but also, like, on the other side, if you don't have money, you're not going to be happy. Like, that's kind of the main thing that I got out of your answers, which I find quite remarkable. Do you know where this comes from for you personally?
Well, I think this is a very dangerous thing, that people think this, and that maybe sort of the society is built around this, that you get money and then you can do the things that make you happy, maybe.
Yeah.
But is that really the case? I think it's all about where you get your happiness from. And this sort of infinite hope for, if I receive this amount of money, then I will be happy. I think that's a super dangerous thing for people to have.
You're actually
That's what I mean with money and happiness. That I'm more conscious about this in maybe in recent months, because of Corona, that you cannot do the things that you normally do. You cannot spend your money the way you want to spend it, just because, well, society sort of locked down. So where do you get your happiness from, and then I realize, I started to realize that happiness and money is in some way, in a good way, connected. I mean, yes, you can definitely do the things with money that make you happy. Maybe go on a trip, go do a fun, have a fun getaway with people or whatever. But it's not everything, and I think society is in some way still built around this, that as long as you have money, then you will be happy. And I think that is just not always the case.
Yeah. What is I saw on LinkedIn this morning, I saw a post from the World Economic Forum about a study that they did somewhere in Germany. My mother actually told me about it already as well, because she had read it before in a newspaper. That they did a study where they actually measured happiness of people with regards to different things, and they had two kind of groups which they assigned to, and probably a third one just to kind of as a control group. I haven't read the study yet, but what they found was that something that we actually know already about money with regards as a hygiene factor. So there's a kind of minimum that you need in terms of money to not, or many of us, not all of us, but many of us seemingly need in order to make ends meet. So to avoid the struggle and hustle and fear around, oh, how am I going to make the next month? So in that sense, money adds to happiness in the way that it releases us from the fear around existential needs to some extent. However, above that, it seems that this is not the case. And what they did in this study was they were actually comparing the increase of the salary with biodiversity. And how did they measure biodiversity? So nature around people. They measured the number of different birds who were singing. And what they found was that significantly the happiness and well-being of people who had higher exposure to biodiversity, measured through the different songs of the birds that they could listen, had a significant higher happiness level than people who got a kind of a salary raise of, if I have it right in my mind, of 1,800 euro. So, and that kind of illustrates very well what you've just been saying. We at some point in history, we confused the happiness that we're, or the source of happiness that really kind of makes us happy. And it seems that nature seems to be one thing, and actually a healthy nature seems to be one thing that makes us really happy, with money. And I wonder, and I would very much like with you to ponder upon the question, how did that come? How did we come to confuse this thing? Why did we project our happiness and the source of happiness on money?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Vera. I don't know. Maybe because society has been built upon, if you pay for something, you get something back for it. Everything has a price in life. And maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with sort of materialistic and immaterialistic.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning, what I mean with that is that you can show to others with materials, like how maybe you can show your happiness to others with materials, with having with owning things, whereas the maybe immaterial things are more in terms of the things you cannot see. I'm constantly thinking about the pyramid of Maslow. and
Mm-hmm.
and what you were just saying is I think perfectly connects to the pyramid of Maslow. You have some sort of the I think the lower three levels of the pyramid of Maslow are all about sort of the more basic things that you need, or maybe the two lowest ones, which is about having a roof above your how do you say so?
Above your head. Mm-hmm.
Above your head, and having the food and the drinks that you need in order to live. But then the higher you get into the pyramid, the more it's about if you are able to develop yourself, if you have beautiful relationships, if you get the rewards from your environment. So it starts with sort of the materialistic bottom, in which you definitely need a house and money and or basic money and food and drinks just to live. But then the higher you get into the pyramid, it's not about that anymore. It's more about the things like getting appreciation from the people around you. So
Mm-hmm. What comes to mind, I'm to be honest, I have a little problem with Maslow.
oh no, tell me about it.
Because I think I'm fully with you with this materialistic and immaterialistic thing. And I also understand where Maslow comes from, because also he comes from the paradigm that we need our material safety, security, in order to get to the notion that we have the freedom to think about these immaterialistic things. However, we see also with what you've been sharing before, we cannot buy happiness.
No.
We cannot. And so even if you're going to have a house, even if you are going to have a beautiful house, if you cannot connect with other people and if you cannot connect with yourself, there's nothing that's going to make you happy. So I am at this point, I'm more and more thinking like maybe maybe number one, it's not a pyramid, because that kind of indicates that it's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
But it's more a both and. And maybe, I mean, you've been sharing before with me that also your family goes through quite hard times right now, and you're actually getting to a point that you are through these really hard times where also a lot of insecurity is coming. You are learning really important lessons. So I kind of, now I'm going to make a both hypothesis, but I would say in these things, the materialistic kind of things in your life play a less and less important role. Actually, the importance of the immaterial things, the relationships, the kind of the balance within the system, and kind of restoring a balance within the system, becomes more and more important. So I'm And I want to go back to something that you said right at the beginning after I asked the question. You said, like, we have this thing that I can kind of buy this, and I can kind of pay for something and everything, and get back something that I want, and everything has a price. And connecting this everything has a price with what I just said, um, maybe it's that we need to realize deep in our bones that there are different currencies for different things, and we cannot buy everything with money. But the currency with which we have to pay the most important things in our lives is, you could nearly say, love, like good relationships, in the sense it doesn't have to be romantic relationships, but also the love between parents and children, the love between friends, the love towards the world, like also with what I said with the birds, love towards nature. So that's maybe a currency that we've been not taking serious in these past centuries. And maybe there are more different currencies that we have to take in consideration when it comes to the really important stuff in our life. And one more thing, to tracing it back to Corona, because you were saying that as well, I think this crisis in which we are in makes us so aware of the inadequacy of money as the only currency.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that's beautiful, right? In some way it's horrible to have these times of corona in which people are dying, and people are really facing problems, not only corona itself, but the many things that happen because of corona, and the fact that we have to be at home and maybe cannot work. There are so many insecurities these days, but I do think that looking at what reflecting on what this period also brings us in terms of becoming conscious about immaterialistic things, I think that is at least what this period is providing me with, a lot of knowledge about how to deal with these times and how to appreciate the things you do have. And that's funny, because the things you do have is then a currency, not money, like not a euro currency, but a currency, maybe a love currency. That would be a beautiful one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To what extent are you giving and receiving love, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question is, maybe, have we been raised with this, the difference between the different currencies, the difference, or maybe the fact that there are different currencies? Have we been raised with this? How is that for you?
I think, to some extent, yes, and to some extent, no. Because I had and I'm so aware of that, this huge privilege that I've been growing up in a warm nest. My family welcomed me and my sister. My family wanted me and my sister to grow up in what they defined as a safe, healthy environment, which was stimulating our curiosity, our learning, our education, kind of creating, as good as they could, stepping stones for us to enter society. And I think they've done quite a marvelous job. And in that sense, they were very much aware that both of my parents were unwanted children, like they were accidents, and they felt it in their life. I think every child that was not wanted, that probably you had that, you studied psychology as well, probably you had that as well, with the kind of secure attachment style between mother and child and the insecure attachment styles. No. So I think it's, can I kind of recall it? Bowlby, I think Bowlby is his name. There was a researcher who found out that there are different attachment styles between children and mothers. And that this actually gets, most of the time, and that's the really hard thing, that this gets perpetuated from one generation to the next one. So if the mother could not heal her relationship with herself, and to some extent also with her mother, she's has a higher chance to give that insecure attachment style again further to her children. And what is in a secure and an insecure attachment style? So they measured it with situation where the baby it's before toddler, I think. So it's when they can they can crawl, but they cannot walk yet. So they have to be uplifted and carried a lot along the way. So, and they measured it by, if I remember it right, rather check it yourself once more. It's quite a, in developmental psychology, it's quite of the one key studies about kind of attachment and health, kind of psychological health of children. So the situation is that the mother is in the room with the child and it plays. So it starts to explore the room, which happens when they usually feel kind of secure enough to do that. And then the mother is kind of called outside. So she's going to leave the room, and then they're going to see how the child is going to react to the mother leaving the room and when she returns. And what happens, like children who have a secure attachment, they're going to be very worried when the mother is going to leave the room. They're going to cry. Like it's kind of course, my safe base is going to leave me here alone, yeah, in that room. So, and when the mother comes back, they have to be kind of uplifted and calmed down. But then you can see with the reaction that even though they're still stressed, they're going to calm down very quickly when they are close to the mother. And then there are different other insecure attachment styles. So very often it's still like that when the mother leaves the room, the child is going to cry, but with the kind of one of the insecure, the child is not even going to bother, which is kind of a ooh, yeah. And when they come back, there's one where the child is, I would have to look it up, but there's one where actually the child is going to hit the mother, like it's going to punish the mother for
not
having
being
left.
there.
Yeah. And another one is that the child is actually, again, it's kind of avoiding actually the contact with the mother again. So she's coming back and the child is avoiding it. And both of that indicates that the mother is actually not the secure base for the child for whatever reason, and that very often has to do with trauma that the mother herself has had in her life at some point, maybe very early or later on, but she cannot provide this stable base for her child. And so one of the things, tracing it back to my parents, so one of the things, and tracing it back to money actually, one of the things that very often children who were not wanted feel is that they have to prove their value, their worthiness, they added value to the family system. So they keep on working hard, super hard, because this is the only way how they can kind of, and later they are going to attach that to money in the sense that money is also something which is showing value or exchanging money. So the idea that I have to work super hard in order to get the reward that I want. And that can be love with regards to parents, or it can be money, which is securing also my existential needs, And I think in that we are teaching our children all the time that money is actually a currency. Love is actually a currency, a really vital existential currency. But we are also teaching them, if we are not aware of that, if we are not conscious about that, the struggle around love and worthiness and belonging and being a valuable part of the system. And if we're not aware of that, we are kind of confusing these two things, money and love, but they are both very important currencies. How can our children learn? They're going to confuse it the whole time as well.
And have you experienced that you were confusing these two all the time?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. So one of the things is, like, I've been growing up in Germany after the wall came down. Like, I've been born a few days after the wall fell, and my both parents were at the eastern side. And for very many people in the eastern part of Germany, quite a turbulent time came into place. Like, of course, they wanted that because they were not happy in that former system either, but they had not learned about the capitalist rules, and they did not know how really the society functions and where they can seek help if they are losing their jobs. And many people lost their jobs. So my parents lost their jobs as well. And there was a period where we as a family had really financial issues. I remember that there were evenings where we either eating rice with fish out of the tins, which was the better solution than pasta with a sauce which is called lecho. So it comes from Hungarian tradition, whatever. And I hated it. I really hated it. But it was cheap, And apart from that, my parents did actually a great job in trying to keep that struggle away from us. But that's an indirect message as well. So what I took out of that period and became aware only later on was whenever money is going to enter the conversation, that's going to be the party pooper. Then harmony is gone. And I really love harmony. I have this strong urge also to restore harmony whenever I feel that there's not harmony. And I think that's actually, again, with women, that's kind of the women's task or the girl's task to restore the harmony very often. So I learned not to talk about money, because I was afraid that talking about money would endanger the good relationships, the relationships which is love or good kind of connections between people. And it took me nearly 30 years, actually it took me 30 years to disentangle that, to understand money doesn't have to destroy the good communication relationship and the harmony in the conversation if you don't kind of bring in your own fear into that conversation. And but I had fear of losing the harmony, so I would avoid that.
I can so much relate to what you're saying. I think I'm still in this process, so if you could give me any learnings.
Okay. Yeah. It's basically really, for me, it's these kind of questions that I've been just sharing with you from the course, like the See You Money course that I'm doing. They are very helpful, and just talking about that, like the conversation that we're having right now. Oh, there's another currency, and maybe I'm confusing it. Where am I confusing it? Where have I confused it in the past? How has that kind of determined the maybe not wanted outcome? How has that undermined the intentions of my conversations that I had before? And how is that maybe also for others? I mean, I guess a lot of us are confusing that. And so our kind of fear around, I'm going to kind of be the party pooper if I'm going to bring in the money topic right now, that's probably for many of us. So that's going to have an effect on the relaxedness around salary conversations, that's going to have an effect, if we're not aware of that, an effect on the conversation around the pricing of a product, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think what I've learned in the last couple of months, maybe also years, is I try to be more vulnerable about this topic and just sharing with the people around me that I find it difficult to talk about money.
Yeah.
Which is really helping me. And it's also, I already got to think about the book of Brené Brown, and I know you love her too. Yeah. How powerful it can be just to be vulnerable and to share your feelings and the way you feel at that exact moment, and that it can be super hard and difficult to share that, but that's what I'm doing more these days. And I think it really helps me to be more transparent about maybe also the assumptions that I have. What I was sharing in the beginning, these are also assumptions, the way I think society has been built around money. That's my perspective. Others might have a totally different perspective. And I think opening up this discussion is very important, but you need some courage for that, I guess.
Yeah, I think so too.
And
I would say courage and the trust in yourself that you can handle it, and the trust in your counterpart that he can or she can hold the space for letting this transformative process, this awareness generating process happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
And stay close to what makes you feel good. I mean, it's a lot these days about the fact that about this glass ceiling, you know, in which women have difficulty getting to the top, just because of all the assumptions that we have and all the prejudice that's there and everything. What I've been telling myself more these days is just, if I feel that the environment is not supporting me in the way I want to be supported, then to some extent I discuss the topic. For example, if I would have the feeling that I don't get the salary that I should receive, maybe also in comparison to male colleagues. Thank God that's not the case right now in my job. But if it would be, discuss it, and if it's not, if your boss is not supportive of this, then choose for yourself and just either leave or find another way to deal with it. But I guess that if you are constantly finding an environment or searching for an environment in which you can be vulnerable, in which you can be courageous, in which you can share your feelings about money and how difficult you find it to discuss it or whatever, I think then you're on the right path. And that takes time, and that takes also maybe reflection. How am I feeling? Why am I not feeling well? I find it difficult to ask money for this and that. Can I discuss it? And if I cannot discuss it, is this the right place for me to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's this constant up and down of checking in with your own feelings and the way you deal with this.
Yeah. I have related to that because I'm feeling like we're kind of getting to a kind of, it feels like, oh, we're getting to a smooth part right now. And maybe also kind of what is it that we can do part. And I would like to ask a final question and maybe take that as a roundup for our conversation. Can I? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question that I have is, if we want that, what you're just sharing in with regards to, so we want these kind of safe places to talk about money and other things that we feel vulnerable and insecure about. And if this is kind of the task for each one of us to kind of look for these places, what in particular will women have to do, or what can they contribute specifically as women in order to get to such a future, to create such a future?
To talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they can do. Talk about it with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think, first of all, finding a safe place in which you can discuss this. I think that's step number one, right? And finding a safe place to discuss this is maybe not to directly go to your boss or directly go to whoever it is that is providing you this challenge of talking about money. But first, find people in which you feel safe with to talk about the things that you find difficult and maybe the things that you want to change. And then see what happens if you talk about it. For me, the fact that I'm talking about it already more these days, about how I find money difficult to talk about, already helps me with sitting in this conversation with you, right? Which was not planned at all. But the fact that it now, I start to talk more about it, just let it happen and see what happens next. I think that's a first good step into making sure that this becomes more of an topic that you can change in society.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Sharing your, thanks for being vulnerable. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and being so open about it. Thanks for engaging so curiously into that conversation, and in general. Yeah.
Well, if people are replying to this and they want to talk about it, I'm very open for it. So I'm also still in this search for talking more about money and my perspective on it and many assumptions probably that I have. So I'm very open for that.
Yeah. I'll post it on the LinkedIn group that I've been creating with another woman, which is called Women in Money, and I'll obviously tag you in it, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Great. Thank you,
Okay.
Vera.
Thank you. So